Estás sentado na porta, o divino San Andrés. Estás sentado na porta para ver os romeiros.
Vale. Good afternoon, everyone. We are about to begin the keynote dialogue. So if you can make your way to the tent and settle in, because we want to start at 3 o'clock sharp, if that's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Está abierto. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And may I have your attention, please? We are going to begin the presentation now. So if you can make your way to the tent and settle in, so we can begin. Okay. Thank you. I hope you are, all of you are enjoying the conference and the beautiful city of Ponte. Oops. Today we are going to talk about technology and democracy and the right to repair. Most of you, coming from a degrowth perspective, understand that the point of degrowth is not only to understand or to build a better understanding of the world, but also to try to change it and to sort of like build collectively new forms of transformative collective action. So I think something which I want to emphasize this point of connecting knowledge and action, because today's speakers are both like bridging these two worlds with they're not only thinking about repair and trying to understand repair, but also very much committed to the task of making a difference, having an impact, and changing the world, which is what we all want to do in this conference. But before I properly introduce our speakers and myself, please indulge me, and I'm going to to tell a little story, maybe which I think captures some of the issues that we are going to discuss today. Okay, the top left corner of the slide is Planet Degrowth, Pontevedra. But can you recognize, or can anyone recognize the starship in the slide? Can you recognize that? Okay, what is that? The Millennium Falcon, right? You're right, the Millennium Falcon. I was a bit worried because there are a lot of young people here, and maybe I need to update my references, but it's okay. So the Millennium Falcon. So as a child in the 1980s, I grew up fascinated with all the Star Wars films and the old films especially. And what is interesting about Star Wars, especially the old films, is that repair and maintenance, I mean, if you revisit the films, repair and maintenance is everywhere in the plot, everywhere. And the relationship between the characters and the spaceships and the devices they use and the droids and all of them are mediated by very strong repair and maintenance relationships, right? Fast forward 20 years to the newest films. This relationship is completely different, and you barely see any reference to repair and maintenance in the new Star Wars films. So it is just an example, but of course you will remember Han Solo, but you have this technology, the Millennium Falcon, coming back to that, is this starship that the owner, like Han Solo, is proud to call the fastest piece of junk in the galaxy, right? And the very interesting thing is that this is a very advanced, very complex technology, but at the same time, it's very convivial and very, in the sense like whenever something malfunctions or breaks down, they don't replace the Millennium Falcon or call the authorized repair services for the ship. They basically roll up their sleeves, go down the hall, and then basically, I don't know, from using chewing gum or a screwdriver or tape or a hammer or whatever, even sometimes just knocking the engine, the machine is back to functioning. And again, all these references to repair are disappearing, which to me signals the relevance, the cultural relevance of repair is also something that is declining as well. And then we come to a situation where we were dreaming about technologies, very advanced technologies, which we should be able to fix ourselves with a hammer and a screwdriver. And then we got this. We crack the screen of a mobile phone, And then, like, we don't know what to do with it. Basically, because repair has become very expensive, it has become inconvenient. The devices are not designed to be repaired, and none of that is, or maybe not everything is accidental. Manufacturers have a lot to do with that and the way they repair these technologies. So I'm going to now introduce our speakers today, who are going to tell us a little bit about the right to repair as something like as a movement that is emerging, is gaining traction, and is seeking to address some of these problems that we're going to, or that we are facing as repair becomes even more difficult. So we have Blanca Caillén. She's a lecturer on social psychology, department of the Autonomous University of Barcelona, a member of the Caillén Research Group. So she has been a postdoctoral researcher at the Center for Science Studies at Lancaster University, and working on the area of social studies of science and technology and collective political action. She has focused on material cultures and community responses to the eco-social crisis. More recently, she has been doing research about electronic waste and cultures of repair in a context of climate crisis. And she is, very importantly, a co-founder and member of Restarters Barcelona, which I'm sure you will talk a lot more about that later. And then our second speaker, I'm very honored to also have with us Hugo Vallauri. Hugo is the co-founder and co-director of the Restart Project, a London-based charity and social enterprise that promotes the extension of electronics lifespans to reduce waste. So with over 15 years of experience in international development, particularly in ICT, agricultural development and communication for development, Hugo leads initiatives that teach people to repair their own electronics and campaigns for the right to repair. He is also a founding member of the European Right to Repair campaign, advocating for accessible and sustainable repair practices. And then it's me. I'm going to chair this session. My name is Javier Lloveras. I'm a co-director of the Post-Growth Innovation Lab here in Vigo. I'm also a Ramón y Cajal researcher. And I'm also doing research on the right to repair. We have recently, together with my colleagues Mario Pansera and Adrian Smith, we have recently published a paper in the Journal of Business Ethics where we talk about this question of repair as a political question, where the point is not only to make repair systems more efficient, but also we're asking questions about who should have the right to repair what, and under what conditions can this right be properly exercised, right? So without further ado, perhaps we can start, if you want to add something about your personal journey, how you came into this, how do you develop this interest in repair? I don't know who would like to go first, perhaps Blanca?
Yeah, my trip on repair, it started with open source software. So then I moved to the material world. I started studying the informal and citizens' innovative responses to the electronic waste problem in the context of Spain. And that was an opportunity to know the experience of waste pickers in Barcelona and also some other creative initiatives in Madrid. And after that, I had the opportunity to know Hugo and Janet and the Restart Project. So I wrote them and said, I want to spend a week with you and learn what you do. So I came back to Barcelona, and I co-founded with other colleagues the Restarters Barcelona Collective in 2015. And since then, we have been organizing restart parties and giving support to the creation of repair communities. So yeah, as you mentioned, right now I'm doing research and teaching around repair as an epistemic and material practice to rethink design in the context of climate change and many other things. Yeah.
Would you like to give us a little bit of an intro?
Yeah. Well, my first interaction with repair was probably trying to give a second lease of life to really poorly designed software for a Kindle, where I learned that open source software can actually, free and open source software can actually give a second lease of life to things. Then fast forward, I had the privilege to work and live in Kenya, where I was working on the reuse of electronic computers and laptops, and appreciating how, in the context of international development projects where often technology is parachuted onto communities, actually the know-how of people making the true most of things, whether it's giving a third lease of life to something or continuing to extract value from products that are semi-rusty because they need them, could actually inform us to think differently about what is a resource and what is waste. Fast forward to when I met my co-founder of the Restart project, and together we wanted to do something to bring hope at a time when the doom and gloom of electronic waste was starting to become visible, and there was often an emphasization of how e-waste is dealt with in places like Ghana or China, but not focusing on how we can prevent collectively the creation of e-waste. And we wanted to use repair as a way to bring people together in a positive way, to learn and share new skills, and learn more about the compromises that we are forced to make when we deal with products. So the Restart project was started as a way to fix our relationship with electronics, meaning to really rethink about the power structures and what we are supposed to be doing when products start to malfunction, and to actually explore in a much broader sense, thanks to the pressure of the volunteer community that we've been working with. From the early days, running a community repair event, a restart party, a repair cafe, was not an end in itself, but was an opportunity to create a community and then to let this community tell us that we needed to change the system if we wanted to have a real impact. And yeah, so bringing these northern and southern perspectives together, because both Janet Gunter and myself had worked across the global south, and learning and appreciating how, we're not inventing repair. We're not inventing the circular economy. We're trying to learn it back after doing a lot of wrongs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to, it's interesting that you mentioned that we're not inventing repair. Arguably, repair is a very old practice, probably as old as humans are. Like we are, since we have created tools and materials, like we have also been fixing them and maintaining them. But I suppose what is interesting here is that now we are framing repair as a right. So what do you think has led us to this situation where we need to start to think of repair as, not as a mundane practice, but actually as a right that we should have? Hugo, would you like to maybe go first?
When speaking at a degrowth conference, I think it comes as no surprise to everyone that we live in a completely capitalist system where the saturation of markets combined with the push for thinner, easy to manufacture products means that there is a tendency to have less durable, more prone to failure products that when they do fail, they're much harder, more complicated, more expensive to repair. And where the system places all the emphasis on a throwaway economy, which has zero incentives for repair and reuse, and all the incentives to appreciate, maybe thanks to amazing marketing, all the latest and greatest features of maybe a tiny improvement in a new version of a product. So fighting back means actually reclaiming not just our ownership of things, which is one of the traditions of the Right to Repair movement, particularly how it came to be from a US perspective, but also appreciating the environmental dimension of the amount of waste that we are collectively forced to generate, and also kind of realizing that in a world where manufacturers are extremely untransparent about their practices, we had no choice but to make the case for it, like turning the community that around the world was trying to create community repair initiatives into a source of stories and of data to tell a different story, a story about what we need and what we want. And so we started to collect with partners, thanks to the creation of an open data standard, instances of where people are trying to repair things in their repair cafes, in their community repair initiatives, at their restart parties. And collectively, we now have over 130,000 stories of people's attempts to repair things and the barriers they face, the lack of spare parts, the high cost that they have, the lack of tools and particularly of repair manuals, and the struggle against software obsolescence. All of these things, these stories, we needed to bring them to the political ground. And so with this data, the only transparent, independent data set that exists to this day about, not the one data sets released by manufacturers for in business setups. No, this is real data from real people taking real time from their lives to try and extend the life of things. So we went to Brussels and we realized that there could be interest in different voices. And that's how we co-created a movement around right to repair to try to change the narrative and to tell real stories of people dispossessed of their products and of the right to decide when and where and whether they should replace them at all. So this is all happening at a time when a whole agenda around the circular economy, green growth, a circular economy action plan was coming into place as a moment in time when, using that door, we could try and fight for products to be more repairable and more useful for longer periods of time. Have we achieved that? We've started to achieve something, but there's a whole lot that needs to be achieved. Also, kind of taking into account that the powers that want that green growth, that want to just make products a tiny bit more repairable, but are not prepared to question whether we should be selling less of them, we should replace them less frequently, we should reduce the release of new products. They're not prepared to do that. So we need to push more and to continue to tell empowering stories about how things can be done differently, and including more diversity, more inclusion, and better digital access for everyone, everywhere.
How about you, Blanca?
Yeah, I would
Come
say,
on, give it an applause.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that I celebrate the legal advance, and I think that the European directive is a useful, necessary tool, but not enough. Because, as you mentioned, we cannot forget the antagonistic and the political sense of repair. So beyond the legal layer, we need a cultural layer to believe that we have a real right to repair. Because beyond the right word in sense of legal, I think that repair is something much more basic that has to do with a vital activity, human activity, and necessary and inalienable human activity for life to go on. So we cannot be dispossessed of not only of the products, but of the knowledge and of this so basic activity to keep life going on. So I think that in parallel to the right at the legal level, we need to claim and we need to work in the mindset, to claim repair as a daily collective activity that is what keeps us and the ecosystem alive. And also beyond from a post-human perspective, we can find repair everywhere in nature. So why it should be just replaced by just put only on hands on the legal or juridic institutions? So we need also to keep this thing. So I think that projects like the Restart project, it's more than the impact, the real impact, or in terms of the quantity of e-waste, is a good reminder, a public reminder of our natural right to repair ourselves and the earth. No? Yeah.
It's very interesting. If I can add something, like in our own paper, we also talk about the right to repair as not so much a struggle for making repair systems more efficient, but also, and above all, a struggle to democratize access to the fundamental repair commons, right? Repair commons could be things like knowledge, skills, spare parts as well, etc. And because this access to these commons is being enclosed, is being by the manufacturers. And of course, this is having a big impact on the people who depend on these commons to have their devices working. And there are a lot of cases like that. But we're going to we can move on to these questions now, because we're going to talk about the limitations of the right to repair as is being currently framed, right? Because the right to repair is not a uniform movement. It's very diverse. There are people coming from different perspectives. Hugo mentioned before, like the more like consumer angle, then the community repair in the repair cafes. We also have like the environmental angle, and also like, maybe another one that we haven't talked about is the people, the thinkers, like people who like to just like see the right to repair as the right to experiment with technology, to be like, have this more playful, experimental attitude to technology. But the thing is that the right to repair is making headlines in policy context, especially as something that legislation is being advancing, especially in the US and the EU. And I mean, we have talked about it, but the right to repair in these cases is defined in a very narrow sense. But perhaps you can expand on this. What are the limitations of the right to repair as it's being currently framed, and why we need to politicize this and perhaps open up new ways of thinking about the right to repair that are different from the mainstream? So you want to go first, Hugo? Or
yeah. So first of all, it's a very complex legislative set of frameworks. So people talk about this most recent directive, the Right to Repair Directive, which a lot of people celebrated, partly because of its name, and which is not its official name, by the way, but it's the kind of catch-all name. And I guess we need to be very careful and very precise and very specific. So that's why on our website of the Coalition of Right to Repair Europe, we published an extensive review of what it is and what it isn't, because many people, and this is one of the big risks, might think that we now have the right to repair, aside from the fact that even that directive requires first to have transposition into national legislation. So maybe let's see in 2 years' time where we get with that. But other than that, it pertains primarily to consumer rights aspect of all of this. So the main innovation in that sense is that it gives people, for products that are within the warranty period, an extra year of warranty if you get it repaired rather than replaced within the warranty. Woohoo! I mean, who cares, in a sense? So if we're trying to change the system, replacement of repairable products within warranty should be simply banned, right? Except that at the time when this legislation started to be discussed, new legislation on warranty had just come into place, and so member states were very not so keen to revisit that because it would need to be changing again. I mean, this is just one tiny insight. Because if you look at the impact assessment of this legislation, of this directive, which is extremely worth going into depth, you'll get some answers of how far behind we are. By its own admission, the impact assessment of the European Commission tells you that this is not likely to fix products being replaced within warranty. I mean, they say it themselves. So there's clearly a lot more that needs to happen. Now, there's also the risk that people might think, okay, job done, let's move on, let's discuss about some other rights that needs implementing. Obviously, there's consumer rights aspects, but there is also how products of the future will be made. And this is a huge chunk of right to repair legislation, which, however, fits under different parts of the European Commission, under eco-design legislation, eco-design for sustainable products, and regulations that we've been fighting for more repairable and durable smartphones and tablets, which from next year will become the only smartphones and tablets you can buy. So definitely making progress there. Legislation on battery user replaceability, which is currently making great progress, except let's talk about democracy and repair. Like, let's use repair as a lens to dive into democracy. We've been part of the team providing feedback to the European Commission on what guidelines manufacturers should use to implement this regulation for their future products. And it was a very telling moment. There were 69 participants in that online meeting, out of which 3 were civil society organizations. And myself and another person actually had a chance to intervene and ask difficult questions. But we're clearly outnumbered. I mean, manufacturers and member states, whereby member states are heavily lobbied by the manufacturers that invest in their countries for service centers or manufacture facilities. And therefore, the member states, let's keep an eye on them whenever we're looking at the European legislative process. They're not doing the interest of their citizens. They're doing the interest of people that have economic large interests. So there's plenty that needs changing, and also we should not forget that the vast majority of products that you own are not covered by any right to repair. The legislative framework right now is based on focusing on a few product categories covered by eco-design regulation. So your fridge, your washing machine, soon your tablet and smartphone, soon-ish your vacuum cleaner, but many, many other products, from your headphones to your hairdryer, your microwave oven, your turntable, your audio equipment, and any other product that I haven't mentioned, your printer, they're not covered yet. And it takes forever. I mean, we've been working on legislation for laptops since 2018. It's now projected to be adopted by the end of 2025, which means for products that might go on the market on 2028. So if the challenge of the climate crisis and the transition to a less wasteful economy is happening yesterday, how is it possible that we are not able collectively to change the pace at which all of this is happening? And now let's thank the EU, however, because it's the only legislative body that is actually trying to influence future design of products. In the US, no one is even trying to force manufacturers to make user repairable devices.
I'm fascinated. Blanca?
No, I just, Hugo knows much more about the legislation, but some of the demands and reclaims that some collectives are saying about the European legislation, it has to do with what Hugo has just said about the limited number of the type and the type of devices. So if this should be more critical and radical and impacting directive, it should include a wider number of devices and products, not only focusing consumers or less users, but also the kind of devices in terms of infrastructural or collective uses. Also, for example, the law talks about a European repair platform, so that will be used to visibilize the repairs. So also, I'm afraid that there is a high risk of creating a new monopolistic market around repair, because very probably the biggest producers will cover most of this public space for publicizing repair. Also, the law says that the spare pieces must be at a reasonable price, but what does reasonable means? Or reasonable for who, or compared to what? Also, I don't know how, but I would like to see and know more about how this right to repair law clashes or not with the copyright and the patents, for example, for spare parts. And also, I think it's very problematic, as you mentioned in your paper, about the framework itself, because the framework is very focused, as Hugo explained before, on the consumption and the consumer rights. But we are much more than consumers, no? So I think that it needs to be reinforced in the ecological frame of the law to work towards a more sufficient and post-consumption kind of measures. And also I ignore which kind of enforcement measures it will include, because it says that, okay, the directive will promote at a national level repair vouchers or repair funds or support local repair initiatives, but it depends a lot on the national level or even municipal level. So there is not a clear compromise on how to transfer this European directive to the real and local projects or measures that will more useful for make repair more real.
This is where Javier goes off track and start to ask questions that we haven't prepared. But I think that's some interesting things coming up here. And you know, I think we're touching on the question of intellectual property, and I think that is key. Maybe we haven't delved deep enough into this, or maybe we haven't foregrounded enough. And also it's something we talk about in the paper, is that in the future it's likely that we are going to see less and less resistance from manufacturers as long as they are capable of monopolizing perhaps like some of the repair services that will be provided with the products, because that could be, I mean, that is in line with many of these access-based consumption or service economy, where you are not so much you're not only buying the product for what the product does, but also like all the service ecosystem that is attached to them. So in many ways, these services are becoming like a very important source of income for the manufacturers. So there is an interest in protecting this space as well for them. And so there might be, or we might be approaching this space where manufacturers are saying, okay, the right to repair means that I'm going to sell you the device, and then I'm going to sell you the spare parts, and then I'm going to fix the product for you or maintain it, etc. So you are kind of tied up to the manufacturer forever. I don't know, like, I put a lot of things on the table, but pick one and...
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of interesting tensions. On the one hand, legislative efforts are opening up the possibilities for independent repairers, community repair groups, and at times individuals to have better access to spare parts and to perform repairs themselves. So, you know, there's something definitely positive in the directive. I didn't want to undermine its potential impact. The reality is that by putting an initial ban on anti-repair practices, in theory, we will have to see what happens in reality when in 2 to 3 years' time it will become enforced. The Commission, well, the European legislators leave some space from some gray areas because they leave the possibility for exemptions due to intellectual property. So talking to legal experts, we know that this is extremely problematic because right now the main barrier, which is known as part sparing or serialization, so the use of software to prevent the reuse of spare parts extracted from an original device that otherwise doesn't work anymore, or the reuse or the use of third-party parts or compatible parts is often or increasingly challenged by manufacturers that might not help you retain full functionality for that part. And Apple is the most famous implementer of this approach. It's possible that this will not be solved fully by this legislation. However, there's also other developments globally. Primarily, I'm inspired by what's happened in Oregon in the United States, where the struggle between different approaches to capitalism, in this case, opens up opportunities to challenge the status quo, whereby Google challenged Apple, saying that you don't need, for security purposes, to block the reuse of spare parts. You can do it in a secure way otherwise. Equally, Google previously was also challenging the eco-design legislation on smartphones at a time when they had already been approved. So, you know, everyone is trying to define their own identity in a certain way, and I think it's much more likely than before that consumers and community groups and independent repairers will actually have more access to parts. But we need to keep watching that implementations of all these legislations are actually opening doors rather than closing them. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make it super clear, we are completely underfunded as coalitions working in this space. You know, the budget that any of these companies can invest in 1 month lobbying, we can only dream of having it for 5 years. And I'm not exaggerating. So this is the big challenge in trying to challenge this whole system.
Blanca, would you like to add something or react to what Hugo said? I'm a bit conscious of time, so quickly.
No, I think that just one very short thing that for me it's also very important to try to find alliances and explore formulas that combine the public and the community responses. I mean, to get support from administration or public administration to these kind of community projects, because if not, we need resources to keep doing these activities. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're coming to the final part of the dialogue, and we're going to talk about the future and where is this movement heading to, or where it should be heading to. Again, in our research, we talk about, for example, something that maybe from a degrowth perspective has to be thought about is the right not to repair something. We may not want that certain devices to be refixed. Maybe we will need to let them decay or even decommission certain products like SUVs or private jets. Maybe they don't have the same status as or they don't deserve the same kind of right to repair or the same care as other products. But there might be other issues that we talk about: monopolizing, conflict with manufacturers, etc. So, very quickly, where do you think the movement should be heading Blanca, you want to go first?
Yeah. No, as I mentioned before, I think that we need to move beyond the consumerist framework, because it's a very short time and short space capacity for reclaiming what repair really means. So in this sense, I think that we need to connect more with the ecological issues, and trying to pay attention and to be more radical, to foster the reduction of production and consumption. I mean, the first day, Georgios Kallis was calling about the frugal abundance of sufficiency. So I think that we need to move more towards this degrowth and this decrease of production and consumption. And also, we need to move more or go deep more on the community side of this to promote more especially the collective dimension of repair, because if not, we will have lost the right and the knowledge and the access to devices. Because I think that one of the problems, especially in this context of climate crisis, is the individuality and the isolation. So I think that we need to reinforce much more, these community and collective initiatives to share knowledge. And it doesn't matter if I don't have any clue about technology, but what happens if I go with some other people that we can do things together. So I agree that we cannot fetishize nor romanticize repair, because we have to, maybe we need more complex analysis of repair and asking us about efficiency of repair compared to other activities, or to think about in which context or under which conditions are we repairing, for example, in connection with labor rights or just transitions. So we need more complex analysis of repair. Yeah, but I think that I agree with you that the right not to repair, but maybe even more the right not to produce, and to keep defending repairing by practice, by repairing itself, not only at a legal claim. Yeah.
Okay, great. And Hugo? Oh, let's give her an applause. Blanca. I never interrupt applauses. Hugo.
This really resonates with me as well. What I would add is that we need, to an extent, to resist the, well, what Cory Doctorow referred to the inshitification of the internet. And I think there's a lot there also for products. I mean, we are pushed on us like all kinds of extremely questionable products, and we need to start to say no. It kind of has to do with also kind of reclaiming our relationship, not just with products, but with nature. So I am very happy to repair and to spend time repairing, but there's many other things we need to repair. So we can't just be obsessed about all these digital devices. We need to recognize that we've probably gone too far in some parts of the world, and slowing down, therefore pushing down on manufacturing less, better, but longer lasting, and actually actively extending the life of things, not just because it's a little bit more trendy than before, but because it's a statement, because we believe in maintenance, repair and reuse and reduction. I would also add that, you know, the fight is much broader than we think. I mean, even just in the last week or so, there's been reports about e-bikes that are very prone to failure, and when they do, you need to replace the whole motor of them. And you have a new wave of generative AI being pushed on people on devices like smartphones, with the promise that for full functionality you need to replace a device that was released less than 9 months ago. So things are not going better. And then there's dimensions around What does this mean for people trying to reuse and service solar lights in Zambia, for people that are creating community repair initiatives in northern Uganda in refugee camps, for the people that are experiencing the worst aspects of extractivism in their own countries, and give a real different meaning to right to repair. So, the right to repair is really not about making it a bit more convenient and tiny bit more affordable for Europeans. It's about changing more drastic the system of production and distribution of things. And it's about the medical devices that I hear from engineers in Italy are thrown away because the battery doesn't exist for defibrillators to just service them. It's about the struggle of my friend Tarek Lubari, who created GLIA, an organization who has been working in Palestine and beyond to give access to medical devices to people who can't even import them. I mean, it's global and it has so many more dimensions. And I really want to see this movement and the voices that power it and often are silenced because they're not European or North American really thrive and tell us why we should fight for everyone.
Well, I think this is a great point to finish. But yeah, I mean, since all of you are still glued to the chairs with us, I just wanted to make an announcement before I take some questions from the audience. I just wanted to remind you that at 9 p.m. we have the Protestival at La Plaza de la Alameda, and I wanted to remind you that you can bring your mug to the square, and the bars in the area had agreed that most of them will serve you the drinks in the mugs. Okay, they are aware of it. If you want to reduce plastic so that you can take the mug out with you. Anyway, so now we are opening the floor for questions. Maybe we can take 3 questions. 3 questions from the audience, and then that's it. Yeah, there is one question here, there is one question there. Okay, and one question here, okay. So, sorry, we take all the questions and then we answer.
No? Yes. So thank you very much. I was wondering, beyond legislation in repairing itself, which is obviously central, what other systemic interventions do you think are necessary for making the right to repair grow, like reducing working hours, universal basic income, introducing education in repairing schools? What other things do we need?
That's a big question. Okay, that's one. There was another question around here, I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been super interesting, and I think it also relates quite well with the dialogue of this morning, so it was, thank you. Yeah, my question relates a little bit with what the other person was asking, which was about how and what spaces do we use to build a culture of repair? Because the everyday life part of not only repairing but also maintaining things is very crucial to this. So how do we do that? And one key question that I have about this is also the gendered aspect of repairing, because apart from my research and partly also from the life experiences, although women are the people who normally repair everything all the time, life and especially biologically speaking, things or living beings, men are far more, encultured to do that. They are more like with like high tech or electronics, and so my question is how to disrupt this dichotomy and maybe merge these sensitivities. So thanks.
I had another question. There was someone in the back. I think someone had their, yeah.
Yeah, my question, I suppose, was relating to the how right to repair fits with wider degrowth strategy. Because essentially, improving right to repair in some industries kind of forces that industry to degrow. And I was wondering, comparing different industries, if it's worthwhile targeting specific industries like tech, because they're making loads of money and producing loads of waste, whereas maybe although they're technically harder to repair, is it worth like strategizing how we repair, or just blanketing and do it everywhere is the best strategy?
Okay, so yeah, we have these 3 questions. Do you want me to rephrase them, or are you okay with that? So we have a question about the systemic interventions. We have another question about the culture of repair in everyday life in the gender dimension. And then we also had the question about how does it fit with the broader degrowth strategizing.
I would say that in terms of systemic interventions, scarcity, the problem is that we are going to suffer. It's not a strategy that we decide to create, but following the climate crisis, we will be forced to repair and other and to explore other responses. I also think that we need to change in terms of systematically or more holistic perspective. I need to change the mindset about the aesthetics of repair, because, to change these cultural values of repair, or how to, for me, a challenge is how to make repair more, valuable and to something to be proud of. So it becomes a more regular and daily and but I'm afraid that the scarcity is going to force us on a very systemic framework. So I also think that we need to change our way of thinking ourselves about the relationship with nature, for example, or with electronics. As Hugo said, the motto of the Restart Paris is we don't only repair electronics, but our relationship with electronics. So I think that a very fundamental stream of work has to do with ethics, about how do we relate with others, and these others, not only people, not only living entities, but also supposedly inert objects and matter. And in terms of the second question, I think it's a problem that I also think that it will become in the future less problematic, because I see that maybe in engineering faculties there are more and more women than before. But right now, it's an issue, and for us, it's something to review, because sometimes I feel that we are reproducing stereotypes. And we live in a gender labor division world, and we reproduce also this, which is a challenge. But you can...
So in terms of what strategies and what incentives, we in the UK, the Restart project has launched with others a repair and reuse declaration that looks at a range of policies that will help, in addition to a right to repair legislation, but also legislation to create more funding and opportunities for repair to go back into education system, but also other levers like shifting away from recycling policies as the key focus of a circular economy, and changing, if you look at SDG 12, the indicators is an increase in recycling. Now, this shows how the system is broken. We need indicators to show us what we didn't have to recycle, so what we can reuse. And so there's interesting work happening in a range of countries, including in Ireland, where a reuse target is now a reality. And so there will be more incentives to reuse more and recycle less, for instance. But actually making repair publicly visible, I mean, building on what Blanca was saying, this remains a key priority, making the case for something to be not just a source of inspiration for communities on a once a month, like a repair cafe would be, but actually building the foundation for these activities to be a regular part of our communities. And Kirsty was mentioning this about what's happening in Wales. In London, we've been working on fixing factories where repair becomes something that you can access more systematically as communities and learn skills or see that it's possible or just get advice. And this, again, it's not brand new. We're not inventing anything. I mean, in Barcelona, back in 2012 or 13, an organization called Milo Cano was already active with support from the city. And elsewhere, there's been plenty of experiments. But how can we make this the norm, like growing all of this, in this case, not a degrowth, but actually increasing access for a much broader range of our communities to these spaces of hope and of support. Because data that we've seen shows that 90%, at least in the UK, of the public has not had any access to any community repair facilities. So there's still a massive gap between who has the privilege to be there and who doesn't even have the time nor the access to it. In terms of, super quick, to the gender aspect, we've done some work on empowering the growth of women and non-binary people run spaces to gain confidence on repair. And it doesn't necessarily always immediately translate in people wanting to then be on the front line repairing together. But we also need to appreciate and respect that. And we're certainly against the typical gendered vision where you have a community repair event and you have certain type of people at the sewing machine and others trying to fix your headphones. But we also need to learn from each other and allow space for gaining confidence and testing and making mistakes and jointly learning together. On the question on the growth specifically, I think we should prioritize products that are that are failing the most. And but I think that in general, if we look carefully, there is a lot of pressure from marketing and advertising to concentrate on upgrades, and we could probably do with a reduction in the speed of the release rate of new products and concentrating more on interoperability of components of all kinds of products, and investing more in repair and reuse economies and maintenance economies so that it's not all on us to always have to fix everything. I mean, that's not why the movement exists. It's not because everyone should be self-sufficient, but let's create jobs for people, valuable and well-paid and with proper status on repairing and reusing and giving a third lease of life to things.
Mm. Yeah, and just adding something, it's just to also to recognize the knowledge and the experience of repairers, because they are supposedly they are facing the damage of the capitalism and the production world. So, what about if we recognize and reintroduce this knowledge and this experience to relearn how to do things and how to do things otherwise?
Yeah. I'm mindful that people are heading now to their sessions, but yeah. I wanted to finish giving the speakers a round of applause. Well deserved. Muy bien. Super. Muy bien. Very good.